Welcome to Dwarven Forge Live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wildlands Survival Guide. What episode is this? Anybody know?
5.
5?
I think so. 5.
All right, well, it's
We're
5
going to
now.
5.
And it's a very special episode because we have a trifecta of sculpting, Dwarven Forge sculpting team here. We got Eli, Michelle, and Nina here virtually. To answer all of your sculpting questions, all of your creative questions, all your Wildlands questions, to talk. I don't even know what are we gonna talk. What are we gonna do tonight, guys? What do we want to do?
Drop a bunch of beans.
Have fun.
Have fun.
What do the people want? Whatever they
Yeah, what do the people want?
The people
yeah.
want beans.
Well, there's not very many beans left, but tell us, aside from a hearty serving of beans, let us know what you'd like to do tonight. So before we start grilling these guys and asking the hard questions, the real the heavy hitting questions, a couple of announcements. So tomorrow we have Die Hard Dice on. I think Todd and Chris. I think Jesse's not going to make it, but Todd and Chris will be on from Die Hard Dice to talk about making the Horizon dice and all of the challenges of making crazy, weird, innovative dice and balancing. And I don't know, they're dice wizards. It's gonna be wild. And I think Toby's gonna be on tomorrow doing some speed builds too, so you can give him some challenges and he'll build as fast as he can over the course of the episode and present some stuff. And then Thursday we have the Dwarven Forge, War and Dwarven.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a wargaming tournament with Hamster and Toby and Mace, and we're going to see if she can remain the reigning champion. It's a 3-for-all, free-for-all that then turns cooperative at the end. So it should be a wild live game on Thursday, and that'll reveal a couple new pieces on that. And then Friday it'll be regular Q&A. Saturday, what's going on Saturday?
Saturday we have a build jam, which is something we haven't tried yet on this channel. Pretty excited. It's going to be Tyler versus Toby, the Archivist and the Technomancer. So we'll have to see who has the better builds out of the two of them.
And Sunday, Hamster's going to be painting trees. And Monday, Aaron's going to be painting the forest. And then, I don't know. We'll figure out from there. Oh, then Eli, you're back on the 25th.
Yeah.
We're going to figure out what we're going to do
And
there.
People have suggestions for what they want to see me doing then.
Splits.
Apparently
Fire
3
away.
hours worth of tree talk, so.
And splits.
And splits.
Sculpting while doing splits.
So other announcements. We have, since last night, we shipped another 100 and something Hellscape shipments out. We're down to, I think we had 342 shipments left to go for Hellscape. So that's getting out there. All these pictures are popping up of people playing with their Hellscape, which is awesome. And do we have any other announcements? Any other updates? Oh, speaking of updates, the update's gonna be late tonight. We were shooting all day and I didn't quite get it out before this went live. So right after this, I'll kick it out. So buckle up. But all the escarpment packs should be live on the pledge calculator and on the website, so you can start spreadsheeting yourself into the ground, into insanity. It's like Call of Cthulhu.
I'm digging this NPR voice also.
You know, I think it's because I'm wearing headphones,
It just,
but I
like,
can't
helps
hear
you.
myself in the headphones. So it's like it's like Prozac or something. I feel like I don't know. I've never taken Prozac, but I feel like there's a
This must
right.
be
Has
what
anybody
it
ever
is.
had the thing where your head? I don't know. Like it's just sort of
Your ears are full?
You hear your own voice differently when you
because
gas
my
it
ears
on
are
your
clogged
Yeah.
up. So then I'm like, so I can't get as crazy. So I just have to gesticulate.
You're
more.
tame.
All right. So,
So
hey,
that's
do you
the-
guys have any announcements from the outside world, from Outpost Heath Sigma Prime or the Great North Kingdom there, Northeast Kingdom,
Northeast Kingdom, yeah.
or Beartown,
No, I mean-
Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
almost as high.
Yeah, let's see Momo. Hi, Momo.
Hello, Momo.
Oh,
Almost furs growing back in.
good.
That's about the only announcement.
What's going on in the wide, uncharted realm of Pennsylvania?
I've unboxed all the Dwarvenite I own. Finally. That was a huge deal. It's finally all unboxed and on shelves.
Oh, you didn't
So,
just unbox it and throw it on the floor. You actually put it away. It's-
yeah, I have 9 units. The metal racks that have wheels on it, they're 4 foot by
Wow.
like 15 or 16 inches wide and 78 tall. And I've got 9 of those packed full.
You need to put pictures on the forums.
I
People love
do.
sharing their storage pictures. It's
I'm
a
trying
thing.
to figure out how to get them all close enough together that you can get the overall effect in a single picture. But
Panorama. And what's cooking up in Vermont, Eli? Any are the chickens behaving themselves?
Chickens are behaving themselves. It's been a good berry season. We just picked like a couple gallons of blackberries out in our front yard. So that's kind of the last of the berries. We got black raspberries, blueberries, gooseberries. Well, Eva did get some nice raspberries. We don't have. We have a kind of a lousy patch out in the garden that's never done much, but we did get some from elsewhere. So
Nice.
yeah, but
Do you ever have mulberries?
I have had mulberries. Mulberries are great.
Yeah, those are my
Yeah.
favorite.
You
Yeah,
like
we
them 'cause
made
you
some
picked
wild
mine.
blueberry ice cream a
Whoa.
couple weeks ago that we're sort of rationing out.
One scoop a night.
So- Yeah.
So let's dive into some. I have a couple of questions, and I'm sure some backers will have some questions and whatever. So first, quickly, why don't you guys each introduce yourself? We'll go around a circle. Eli, who are you? How did you start sculpting, and what's your specialties?
All right. I'm Eli Alexander. I'm from the little town of Craftsbury Common in northern Vermont. I've been sculpting. Oh, gee. I mean, it started as a hobby, so it was something I kind of worked into gradually. I mean, I've been sculpting with Dwarven Forge since City Builder. I did a lot of the roofs and walls and a lot of the buildings in City Builder. But before that, it was a hobby that became just an avocation and ended up in me creating my own little studio, Griffin Tamer Studio, running my own little Kickstarter, which did pretty well. And that led to an association with Dwarven Forge, got invited in to start working on that by Stefan, who was one of my early backers. And I never looked back from there. Pretty much been full-time on Dwarven Forge since then.
People still talk wistfully about the Enter the Dungeon, the first and only Griffin Tamer.
I know. I
Kickstarter.
still get asked for that temple. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, I still have the mold and the original masters, and you know, it's just a question of having the time and you know, a big pile of resin if I were to produce more of them. I'm guessing that down the line, you know, Dwarven Forge will be doing some temples sooner or later that may draw on that for inspiration.
Yeah.
And I am still, you know, I still do my own little side projects for fun. So I am kind of building up a little back catalog of my own little stuff, I guess.
Well, you sculpted you sculpted a dragonborn for your dad for his birthday, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I sculpt minis for, you know, my own use. And, you know, sometimes I do, like, actually, here's a fun thing. This is a creature I did just on a lark.
Wait, can you go to a single on?
Kind of somewhere between a
Single.
frog and a crab and a shark.
Oh, classic frog
it's-
track crab. Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the Sharkdo crab in Magic.
Simic, yeah.
It's not that close to it, but it, you know, that kind of a weird creature. It's sort of inspired by a little sort of alien monster that I had when I was a kid, and I also have some other schemes for using it in my own D&D games, which I don't want to mention out loud because my wife is listening. I want to surprise her with it. But anyways, so
Intel.
you know, so occasionally I'll just whip up something fun like that. But yeah, mostly I'm full-time or more than full-time for Dwarven Forge, and that's great because I love sculpting.
And
Yeah,
the
beyond
world
that, I
loves
mean, I'm
you
pretty much
sculpting.
self-taught. Pretty much self-taught, and you know, I got started when I was, you know, when I was a kid. My mother was actually an art teacher and had done a lot of ceramics. So, you know, I made mugs and clay pots, and I actually made little clay monster miniatures when I was probably about 12. That because I'd always loved the D&D ones, but could never afford them when I was a kid, and I was one of those sort of things. So I made some. I unfortunately don't have those anymore. They're probably in a box in my parents' attic somewhere. If I ever find them, I'll post them somewhere. But of course, because they were made out of regular pottery clay, they were kind of fragile, so most of them have busted off a bit. But anyways,
You
that
weren't
was
casting Dwarvenite as a child?
I did not have access to injection molding technology at that time.
It's
So
you know what? It's probably safer that way.
yeah, probably for the best.
Can you
But
can you
anyways,
hold
yeah,
up
so,
your Shark de Crabapus monster again? We got a hold on, we got a single
okay, sure.
camera for you. Wait, hold 2 shakes.
Here he
All right,
is.
there we go.
Yeah, he's
Does he have a platypus tail? What's going on there?
it's kind of like a crayfish tail or a lobster
Yeah.
tail. Yeah.
Could
So
you hold
yeah,
it
this
a
is
little
an
lower?
amphibious
There you go.
creature. What's that?
A little lower.
Lower, sorry. Okay, like there. Yeah. So he's got an eye stalk for watching for things above the surface of the water. Big kind of shark mouth. He's, you know, bipedal, so he can hop up out of the pond and chase after you. You know, got some pretty good claws, but he can also swim. He's got kind of fins on his legs, and he's got that tail, so he probably kind of scoots along a bit like a crayfish. He may even swim backwards like a crayfish does.
Wait,
Anyhow.
they swim backwards?
Yeah, yeah. They use their tail and kind of scoop the water and shoot themselves backwards. You never caught crayfish as a kid?
Unintentionally, they would like sometimes try and pinch me, but like,
Yeah, they actually taste very similar to lobster. You cook up a bunch of crayfish.
They seem
Occasionally used to catch some in the local ponds, and we'd cook crayfish for dinner.
pollywogs were more my speed. Like,
Pollywogs. Oh, I don't think I'd want to eat pollywogs.
no, I wouldn't eat them, but they were easy to catch. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nina, who are you, and how did you start sculpting in life, and what are your specialties?
Who are you is like a really big and
Yeah.
existential question, right? Like I'm still trying to figure out who I am. Yeah, my name is Nina Heath. I've been sculpting with Dwarven Forge since Castles. I don't even know how many years ago that was now.
What is time?
What is time even? And I have kind of always sculpted as a hobby. It wasn't something that I ever took that seriously, really. When I was a kid, I used to like just making tiny stuff for doll houses and the like. And then, you know, I got older, didn't go to school for it. So like Eli, I am mostly self-taught. And I, you know, graduated. Actually, luckily, I graduated during a Great Recession, so I decided to pursue art instead of law. And now here I am doing something that I'm honestly much happier to be doing.
But you know, it goes to show that like people can try and tell you to do the safe job or to do the thing or whatever, but like
I couldn't
You
even
know.
get a safe job.
No.
So I was like, you know what? We're gonna do unsafe jobs. We're gonna go to this crazy guy's apartment and help him paint stuff, and it ended up being some fun.
That's the best description of it ever. It's 1,000% true. Well, I'm glad you took the gamble and went for the not safe job, right?
Hey,
Imagine
when you need money, you gotta pay that rent. You gotta take whatever jobs.
imagine
And
if
you know, art is one of the only skills I have. So
if you tried to be a lawyer, the world would be a sad place.
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I would have. I don't know.
I don't think the world needs more lawyers.
No. Like you chose the right path. And what is there anything you like to specialize in sculpting?
People keep saying that I'm really good at making gross stuff.
You are.
And it's fun to do. It's fun to try to make something that's gross but also kind of pretty. So I've gotten to do a couple of things for this Kickstarter. They haven't really been revealed yet, the grosser things that I've done. So I'm looking forward to all of you seeing those.
I like to say
Bizarre math.
unsettling more than gross. Like,
Okay, yeah, that's probably a better word.
and Michelle, what do you? Who are you, and what? How did you start sculpting, and what do you specialize in?
My name's Michelle McGriff. I started sculpting right after one of my fireworks displays kind of burned up and almost caught a church on fire. So
Wait, what? wait. You can't just throw that away and be like, move on. Wait. All
So-
right, go on.
I love doing fireworks displays. And as a kid, I thought it was really boring to light something off, watch it explode, yay, and then move on to the next one. So I started building popsicle stick and matchstick houses and stuffing it full of fireworks to light off. So it'd all go off at once. As I got older, they became more and more elaborate castles and Baba Yaga's hut and an entire pirate village and papercraft ship. And it was the papercraft ship that I'd used Roman candles as the masts. And because it was papercraft, there's this little thing that happens for some reason when fire and paper get close together,
Well, was it held together? Was it rubber cement or anything? Because that's super flammable. Was it?
No, it was just regular. I think most of it was done with glue sticks. But anyway, the ship caught fire early. The whole thing caught fire early. And the mast tipped over. And we were doing it in a church parking lot.
So the Roman candle tipped over and pointed straight at a church?
Pointed right at my husband's car, Chuck's car. Got hit with several of them. And they hit the roof of the church. Luckily, only one of our friends got hit by Roman candles, and he was mostly okay. He was standing in front of his kids to protect them. And I ran in with my hair just loose, ran in and grabbed the Roman candles to point them up to get them.
Wow.
So I was really lucky that I didn't catch on fire. But anyway.
But you still do your fire, like people come from a ways around to look at your fireworks displays, right? You still do these July 4th.
They did.
Even though you almost burned a church down, it didn't stop you.
Yeah. The neighbors all still come. Anyway, really long segue. Because I almost burned things down with paper, Chuck decided I needed to build with something that was a little more durable. And so we found a company called Hearst Arts that makes molds. And I started pouring casts and painting those up, making little scenes that I could then blow up. But he didn't have a lot of stuff that was like accessory type things. And so when I was doing an Atlantis build with a pirate town, nobody makes coral. So I decided to sculpt some coral.
Was this as a thing, Atlantis, that you were going to blow up with fireworks? Yeah. So wait, so pyromania drove you to sculpting?
Yes.
So, okay. Amazing.
It's got to be the oddest reason to go into sculpting.
It's the best.
So I sculpted a bunch of little things, and they turned out great. Made molds and made hydrostone casts of all those pieces. And it worked really well. So I decided I was going to sculpt some more things. And I had just gotten the Caverns Kickstarter stuff got from Dwarven Forge.
Yep.
That was the first stuff I bought. And I had just gotten that in. And I found the forum and started posting some of the pictures of the stuff on my custom painted Dwarvenite. So during City Builder, Stefan saw my post of some of the rags and riches stuff that I was doing, and he said, "Do you want to sculpt for the Kickstarter? We've got 2 weeks left."
You were doing like cool. Weren't you doing cool tapestries and curtains?
Yeah,
that point?
I did
Yeah.
some curtains, sculpted curtains. I did a tiger skin rug and rubbish, piles of rubbish.
And rubbish, just a.
Yep, there was. You just don't find. I mean, you can break barrels and crates and stuff, but you don't find like moldy bread and apple cores and things like that. And so that's the kind of stuff I was putting in there.
Quality
really
trash.
Tiny, really tiny things. Occasionally a coin hidden in there so that the adventurers have some place to, oh look. So that's how I got in. And I really like doing fine detail, really tiny things. My go-to sculpting tool is a sewing needle.
How did you even start using a sewing needle?
Because all of the tools that I had were detailed enough. They weren't sharp enough. I just was frustrated because I couldn't get the face of a bas-relief figure that's only half an inch tall to look right with any of the sculpting tools I had. And a needle it's got the eye end that you can use and then the sharp point. So I really like using them.
That's why the mistress of minuscule. So let's talk about some of the specific challenges of Wildlands, right? So this was an all wilderness, well, mostly wilderness, right? We could do have ruins, I guess. So the our first all outdoors Kickstarter. What were some of the specific challenges for you guys going into this? And I can think of a few. But.
Well, there's always just the question of keeping in mind what we've already created and wanting new things that really work with that, but were still unique and interesting and really expanded on that rather than just feeling like repetition. So, I mean, I wouldn't say I saw it as a challenge so much as a great opportunity that we had kind of laid the groundwork with the Dread Hollow Forest, that we could now expand on that and do, other kinds of trees and other kinds of plants and swamp terrain that fit around the forest edge and all of those sort of things. So just trying to keep it fresh and interesting and make every piece exciting and fun, even the little rocks and fallen logs and so forth, to make those not just throwaway pieces, but things that are exciting and that have detail that rewards close attention. I mean, I don't know, that's not so much a challenge, but I don't know.
It is a challenge.
Was just excited. I was really excited by it. Yeah,
how do you do how do you do more? Yeah. How do you do more forest things that are different but still exciting?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly kept expanding on adding new species of plants and looking at new forms of trees and trying to make the swamp biome feel distinct and yet related to the forest biome. So there's a bunch of new species, and each of them has like a particular place it occurs, or maybe it's closer to the water or further from the water, or it intermingles with the forest things. And yet there's enough of the forest stuff that if you put them together, you're like, oh yeah, that flows into there. Yeah.
What about you, Nina? Were there any specific challenges of the project that are different than previous?
I'm kind of with Eli. It was fun to just be doing something that was sort of a natural progression from the Dread Hollow forest. All the stuff that was challenges was like right at the beginning, when we were just trying to come up with the look of things and how things were going to feel. But those are all like, I think we went into that more in depth than we ever had. Like we had that whole, however long that was, of everybody just working on that.
Yeah,
and that was
summits.
great. It was a challenge that we presented for ourselves to try to be more cohesive than we ever have, and it was a lot of fun also.
Well, also I think the scale, like the pieces are all big comparative to...
Oh well, yeah, that's a challenge for my arm. To hold the piece while I'm sculpting it. So oh my God. I have hand pain.
Yeah, you hold up one of those big escarpments for like 8 hours straight. Yeah. 2 pounds of clay or whatever it is.
It's got to be more than 2 pounds.
I mean, I don't know offhand, but it's
like,
I mean,
it's at least 70 pounds. We're really strong. When you're a sculptor, you get buff.
Any other specific challenges, Michelle, you want to add?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for this Kickstarter is scope. There's so much to do. There's so much we want to do. And we had to really rein it in. And I think we've got an awesome grouping of everything.
But there's tons more we could, like...
Than we want to.
There's so much, the outdoors goes forever. Like you could, we could just go and go and go and go and go.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, was there anything that you guys got particularly excited about in doing Wildlands? Like this was, wow, it's such a cool opportunity to...
Well, for me, it's just the fact that each piece has, like, every inch of each piece is its own, like, individual sculpt. I don't know if that makes sense, but when you're sculpting, like, bricks or stones or whatever, you're kind of just trying to make, like, one consistent thing. But for each swamp or forest piece, like, each individual plant, each little critter, like, everything on there is a work in itself. And for me, that kept it really interesting and exciting to work on.
It's not 500 dungeon bricks over and over again.
Right, it's like each individual plant, like that, and it kind of makes it like a continuous problem to solve in terms of composition, like how Eli mentioned earlier, that certain plants occur in certain places, but we also wanted it to sort of be able to transition into Dread Hollow fine. So there was a lot of problem solving and thought that went into composing where the plants went on each piece.
It's fun that what excites you is the same as what challenges you.
Like, well, that makes what sense. Makes this great.
Yeah,
that's what makes this great. That's why we love doing this, because the challenges are exciting and fun. You never get bored. It's a creative problem-solving process, and I think that's something that's particularly interesting about terrain sculpting. At least I sometimes feel a little bad for mini sculptors who have to sculpt like the 97th elf ranger who's holding 2 swords and and like, it's not that those aren't cool, but like, I imagine after you've done 96 of them, they're a little boring. Whereas, every time we do a new set for Dwarven Forge, it's something new, and we get to solve new problems and tackle new challenges. And well, like this time you said, what was I was especially excited about trees this time, definitely, because doing the first bunch of trees, maintaining that enthusiasm for every single little leaf on a big set of things that are all kind of similar is a little trickier, just like doing a lot of stonework.
When you're on the 6,000th leaf, it's of the same, because they were
Ah,
all
this
the
one gets a
same.
bug hole. All right.
It was
Ah,
six
but,
different tree pieces that were
Yeah.
all the same type of tree.
yeah.
It's a tough.
Whereas this time, each one had a different shape, a different branch form, a different, some of them had fruit. They had different plants growing on them, like the quildren and the rowan particularly have, wild roses and mistletoe and bromeliads and all kinds of stuff on them. Coming up with new weird little, like there's one of the sort of mossy fungus things that's on the slink root and the black rot tree that I did for the swamp, and it looks well, I called it the face grabber moss because it looks kind of like the face grabber from Aliens. And it's this
root.
little spidery looking thing, and it was supposed to be
right.
specifically like a shadowfell species, and you look at it and you're like, is that a moss or is that gonna jump off and grab me? What is that thing? And so just like that little teeny, it's like an 1/8 inch square. But if you look very closely, there are those things on there, and they're a little creepy. And yeah, so that kind of thing that you couldn't put on a generic tree because it would, seem a little out of place, throughout if it's just a tree that turns up in the Valorian Park. But on those weird swamp trees, yeah, you could really go for it. So yeah, super exciting to do the more strange and unusual things where you can just kind of open the floodgates and get creative with it.
Well, interesting on the challenges front, you're saying there's these unique challenges with terrain. Like when you're making a miniature, it generally doesn't have to be modular, right? So you have suddenly it's like, okay, well, you need to sculpt this tree, but also it needs to fit into this, and it needs to have a weird 45-degree turn here, and it's like there's some constrictive geometry that you guys get faced with, or specific thing, or it's a whatever it has to fit into this teardrop insert hole, but it also has to feel organic, but it also has to do this. So it's like it sort of piles on these layers of challenges.
Well, in that sense, we're sort of subjected to your creativity in coming up with all this insane geometry as you're making all these mocks, and then you hand it over to us and like, here's this thing, it's going to do this, fit on this, and there's 2 holes here, and there's a thing for this there. Make it look good. We're like, but that's fun. Yeah, it is.
Well, and then when it works, you get mutilarity, right? We get the merging of modularity and beauty into this like crazy Frankenstein. It's a sexy Frankenstein, and that's like.
Yeah.
That's when we win. If we can erect sexy Frankenstein, we win, whatever that means. Like, no, crazy guy. Chris is like, he's like, no. He's
The Bride of Frankenstein?
Actually, it's Sexy Frankenstein's monster.
Okay. So, what? Let's look at some of these. Things for a sec. So let's pop up. We got our close-up cam.
Okay, I better turn my Twitch back on. I can't.
So
Can't see anything that you're.
all right, so I've got we've got this floating log that Nina worked on here. I wanted to talk about, Nina, you're familiar with this obviously because you spent, I don't know, days on this, however long. What were there any challenges of doing like a log floating in the water type thing? Like it's, most people think, oh, it's just like a log, like it can't be that hard, right? But this was, somebody said was it at PAX or on the internet side, they were like, I never realized I needed a log as much until I saw this floating log. So like, how do you make a log that people instantly want, and like what are the challenges?
I wanted it to be creepy, because that's kind of the whole vibe of the swamp. So my goal was to make the branches look like they're reaching, almost like if the log's floating, it's propelling itself forward. But mostly I just was trying to make it interesting. I don't know, I got really into that log.
I know.
Like it was kind of like not supposed to be that big of a deal of a piece, but then I just started working on it. And then I worked on it like all night, that one night before the Christmas party, and got out of hand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? We don't want to have throwaway pieces, right? Like if you're going to do it, like let's make it meaningful. Let's make it a log that everybody wants.
Yeah, I don't think there are any pieces where it was It was always like I need to stop working on this because it just needs to be done. And I just but I always wanted to because with wilderness you can always put just like one more thing. I feel like
Yeah.
there's so many places where you could put something.
Well, no art's ever finished, right? You just have to abandon it at some point because you run out of time. And particularly with this wilderness stuff, where there's just you can just keep having another mushroom or another piece of slime or another whatever. Michelle, let's look at. I've got I'm holding up a. This is one of the arcane arches, the curved corner arcane arch. What were some of the challenges with this piece, or some of the adventures, or I don't know, what was it like working on these ruins, which are like everything else larger than before, right? These are 3 inches high, not our usual 2 inches high, so there's already more ground to cover.
Specifically with the curved wall, it was getting all the geometry to work and look right for an arch that goes, make it look like the straight arches, enough like the straight arches that you could tell they worked together. And since one side is smaller space than the outside, it was coming up with a design that's similar enough but different so that I could take up that extra space.
How do you do all this, the elaborate knot work, right? So the top and the ends has this like super elaborate knot work. Like do you have a template you put down? Do you draw it first and then out? Like, how the heck do you do that?
Well, I generally draw out the design, and since I use Super Sculpey Firm, it actually works a little like silly putty. So you can roll out clay onto a pencil drawing, and it marks right onto the clay. So then I just cut all the negative space, then put it on another layer of clay so that the layer underneath is smooth, and then I make molds of the design.
Wow.
So that I can then just press clay into it and put it onto the surface of the piece that I'm working on. So
it's like 3 layers analog.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was one thing that made doing all of the intricate detail for these pieces so much easier, because I could copy the patterns, copy the various design elements.
And then because it's ruins, then you could sort of chip them up and ruin it a little and give each one some personality.
Yeah.
After it. Wow. So Eli, I'm holding up here the glamour leaf.
Right.
Which
yeah, that was a fun one.
Actually lost this prototype broke. It's missing one of its little arms. So what were some of the things that went on with this piece?
Well, that was definitely an interesting one. I mean, first of all, we had kind of a process of coming up with the design where there were a bunch of kind of weird plants that we'd sort of assembled when we were doing our initial kind of design process for the Wildlands. Generally, you had picked out some ones that you especially liked that had this kind of sort of creepy, glowing, maybe carnivorous vibe.
I never get tired of creepy, carnivorous vibe. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So then I took those, kind of synthesized them into a couple consecutive concept art pieces. Then we finally got to one that you really liked, and then that became the springboard for the actual piece. So it was definitely a mix of looking at, fantasy art, images of creepy plants, real orchids, some of which are similarly fantastical and just also wonderfully colorful. And so that the main shape of it is definitely quite inspired by an orchid. Also looking at some things a little further afield, like deep sea anglerfish, which have those light lures in the scent, that they dangle off their head, or their glowing tongues, like a alligator snapper has that tongue that it wiggles and draws in things to catch. And thinking about that, so the light would be in the center of this thing. It has this big almost like a cobra hood, and these little fronds sticking out that maybe they can move, maybe they're just pretty shapes. But then if you look into the throat around the sort of the throat like structure where the fiber optics are, you notice there's some little like kind of thorny like tooth like shapes there. Again, maybe that just helps keep the bees in there when the giant bees come to pollinate, but maybe it'll eat you if you get too close. Yeah, and then that piece was made. I made each of the different bits separately, and then assembled them. It was definitely doing the symmetry of it was kind of a challenge, because it's a natural shape. You didn't want it to be perfectly symmetrical, but it wanted to be close enough. So kind of doing reverse images of all the different sides, different parts of the plant was definitely kind of interesting. I was very particular in how I got all the curves to kind of echo each other, but to be a little bit different. And I think that one's going to be a real blast to paint for anyone who gets it unpainted and wants to just kind of go nuts with a sort of crazy orchid paint scheme. I think that's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to doing some of those. Yeah.
Let's look at. And you had to leave enough space for the electric.
Yes.
Batteries and switches and fiber optics and whatnot, which is, once again, there's some geometric challenges where you're like, well, there has to be I have this big lump true. I have to sculpt around.
Yeah, because it had to be slightly bigger than, actually say something I have sitting here, this little campfire piece, the base of that barely holds the battery, so it had to like be a little bigger than that to work, and those things don't look that big until you're trying to fit a plant onto them, and your plant, it can't be 8 inches tall, because then it's going to cost $200, and that's not good. So, so trying to keep them small enough that you would want to, buy them in multiples and make a little grove of them, or a bed of these crazy orchids, yeah.
Bed of orchids. Nina, do you want to talk about this sorrow nest, which still remains one of my favorite weirdo, I don't even call it critter, plant. I guess mostly because the fact that it feels sci-fi and fantasy. I mean, we talk about it a lot, but it's, I don't know. This guy is, I can make it a bulb pod too. Wait, hold on a second. Well, where did this thing come from?
You might be muted, Nina.
Yeah, we're not hearing you.
I was totally muted. Sorry, because I was actually like working over here, and I didn't want my
I kind of noticed
clicking to be making sound in the background as they're talking. But anyway, so it's kind of a combination of what both Eli and Michelle just said. It started out as a bunch of concept sketches that I made, and it went through a lot of iterations until I kind of settled on something, and then I sculpted actually one segment of it and made a mold of that so that I could do the other segments faster, and then made them each slightly different. So
do you have the concept art? You did some really beautiful concept art. Nothing like putting you on the spot of like, hey,
no. It's got to be somewhere in my apartment, but I don't have it like right here.
We should when we get to the tail end of the campaign, show off some of the concept art. You've done some really cool bits. We can't really show most of it right now because we haven't. I think we've revealed a bunch of these.
Yeah, some of my favorite things are not out yet.
Yes, patient.
Hopefully they'll get to come out.
I love the little baby ones, the little bulb pods. They're so creepy in all the right ways.
Yeah, that was just you're like, oh, well, what's a baby? Make a baby version of that thing, and made like a little Cabbage Patch version.
It looks kind of like Audrey from Little
Yeah.
Shop of Horrors. Yeah.
The little baby. Yeah, it's all the right sort of creepy. How do you find, like, when you're trying to do unsettling? Like, how do you get? I don't know. How do you make the thing have an emotion? Because it does.
Oh man, that's a good question.
Right? How do you make a thing just give you a response? I don't know.
I don't know. I try to just make things as dynamic as I can. I think that the work that the painters do has a lot to do with the sort of the response that the pieces evoke. So I just try to make an interesting dynamic sculpt that I like looking at. And then the painters do the rest of the magic.
It's some good magic.
But if there's like a specific formula for how to do it, and someone figures that out, that would actually like be really helpful to know and probably save time.
And they'd be like a bazillionaire in the art world, right?
Yeah.
Let's look at Michelle. I have the Archaean dais here. So these guys, for the audience, our paint team, our sculpt team, can't see. They can't see the video feed. So I have to tell them what we're looking at, and they're going from memory because they're very intimately familiar with these pieces. So this is the big Archaean dais, and I've got the saluting seraphs, the ninja angels, or karate angels. What did Toby call them?
Yeah. Because they're doing.
Yeah, because they have their arms up. They're kind of like in the
Swan
the crane kick
Crane,
pose
that's
from
what it is.
Karate Kid. Like, what are any challenges with this piece you want to talk about? Making circles and how really fun that is to make perfect circles.
How challenging it is to. Well, I'd had for the knotwork on top, I'd had something I'd done in the past, and I wanted to make it feel kind of different, and also sort of wild. So I had put thorns on the knotwork, and the thing that was challenging was the fact that the piece that I had molded was straight, and so I had to carefully work the pattern so it would fit in a circle.
So you had to bend a straight line into a circle, like
Yeah.
Neo in the spoon.
Just making it look intact enough, but also like the forest was taking over too. It's old enough that even though it was made by these ancient, fairly advanced people, that even they couldn't stop the force of nature.
I think that's what we've learned. Oh, that's right. You can't stop nature. All right, and let's look at one more. Eli, you want to talk about the Quildren?
Sure.
So look at this twisty spiral, the Fey Helix tree. So what was it like
So-
with this thing?
Yeah, that was me just kind of really enjoying the chance to do to kind of really kind of compose a tree based on the shape, and looking at it from all angles and trying to get something where the trunk would contribute to an interesting overall composition. Spirals, of course, are they have an interesting place in a lot of cultural traditions and magical traditions, and the idea of something that covers the same ground and yet changes in relationship to it. So the idea of a tree spiraling upward seemed really, really appropriate for something from the Feywild, particularly. And of course, there are a lot of trees in nature that spiral. A lot of wood, if you look at it, the grain tends to spiral upward much more subtly than this thing does, of course. But anyways, that was just a lot of fun playing with that shape and then trying to get something that felt like it was balanced but asymmetrical. So the way it twists around and the different parts of foliage relate to each other, so that it, it's very stable and yet it's very irregular. And I really like that play.
The factory had other thoughts about it.
Yes. There was a little bit of headbutting back and forth before we convinced them they had to make it. I did tweak it a little bit. It used to be a little more open in the trunk, so I thickened up a couple of the pieces, the three forks of the trunk there, so that it would be, I guess, less likely to warp, which obviously is good. And which meant I had to redo a lot of the vines on the trunk, because obviously they're fine detail right on the surface. So if you change the diameter of the trunk, you lose all the vines. So some of those vines are done twice, but so be it. And then I think Hamster did a cool paint job, giving it a bit of sort of a magical glimmer, which is really nice there. One thing that inspired this actually a bit was cypresses and the sort of cypress knees. I know one of the other trees is more of a real cypress, but this one, the sort of jutting roots, the way they stick up, feels like some trees, cypresses specifically, and mangroves also, in really swampy areas, they have these extra bits of root that stick up that help them gather more oxygen, because obviously the roots are underwater. So this tree will feel at home in a pool of water, as well as in the forest.
So that's something interesting. So both you and Nina touched a little bit on paint and the role of paint on the sculpts. What's it like for you guys? So you work on this thing and then pass it down the line to paint team. What's it like to see it come back painted, and or do you ever jump in and help them, or I don't know, what's that experience sort of like, seeing that thing? Does it?
It's great. I mean, it's always wonderful when you see a nice paint job on something you've done, and it's exciting to see, particularly in multiples, and you get to see how the whole landscape really appears. I definitely will toss out suggestions, if I've put a particular flower somewhere, and a primrose wants to be yellow, or the flowers on a mistletoe want to be white, or whatever, the berries of mistletoe. So I'll definitely mention that sort of stuff, or I'll point out some of the weird little creatures I hide in places, to make sure they don't get overlooked. But obviously, ultimately, it's up to, Aaron and Hamster to figure out how to translate all of this crazy detail into something that both looks great and will be repeatable at the factory.
Well, that's the challenge, right? You could have the greatest paint job in the world in mind, but it might not be replicatable.
Yeah. Although I will also say, I definitely kind of sculpt for the people that want to paint their own as well, because I feel like a lot of this stuff does really reward that. So although I absolutely admire what Aaron and Hamster are doing, I think backers who love to paint and get the unpainted should really enjoy this stuff, because I always get all mine unpainted, and that way I can just go crazy and do all the stuff that would be ridiculous to ask the factory to do, and have every mushroom be a different species and that kind of thing.
Do you guys ever get excited? What's it like when you see on Facebook or on social? I mean, Nina, you're running social, to see every goddamn post ever. What's it like?
It's like the most exciting thing. Were you gonna ask about when people do their own paint?
Yeah, right. You see,
because I sort of jumped right in when you finished the question. Yeah, no, I love it. Absolutely. I wish that more people would post those and tag us, because I know there's more that I'm not seeing, and I don't know. It's just people, because like Eli just said, there's only so much we can ask the factory to do. So when people are doing them themselves, they can really kind of go all out and take as much time as they want, and get every little detail that we hide in there.
Especially, I feel like with wilderness stuff, some of the paint schemes we're seeing on Dread Hollow, or people are just going bonkers, right? Painting every single plant a different thing, and it's pretty wild. So the big
I
takeaway.
spent nearly as much time painting my Dread Hollow as I did on sculpting.
Wow.
And that's saying a lot. It's crazy. But, that there's enough stuff in there that, you can do that. And, well, that's the goal, to make it rewarding,
Yeah. We so the takeaway from Nina there is tag your photos, like, tag us.
Please, always tag us.
Yeah.
We want to see it.
We want to see it. Like, the team
It makes
loves...
us so happy.
Yeah, and almost every day somebody's putting something in our Slack feed of like, hey, did you guys see this? Somebody posted this cool thing up there. Check it out. Or it's really inspiring on our end, and we love retweeting it or reposting it or spreading it out there, showing it on Twitch and whatnot. Like, we love this stuff. So share it. The way to ensure that we see it is tag Dwarven Forge in there, because it's the best. What about you, Michelle? Is it ever? Are you ever surprised at the paint schemes that come back, or inspired, or appalled?
I think there's a little of both. I know that I like to get some of my stuff unpainted. I was originally getting all unpainted, and then I realized I'm just not having the time to paint.
Yeah.
And so I've slowly gotten more and more painted stuff. I love getting to see it painted, getting to see multiple pieces, because it's kind of hard to visualize each individual piece as you're sculpting it in the part of the greater whole.
Yeah.
So you can, when you finally get to see it all set out, and that's when it just hits you how amazing it is to be part of the team, and just to see what we get to come up with and produce. There's just nothing like it.
Well, for me, that's the sort of the magic of Kickstarter is it's really the first time we get to like finally assemble the full battle station and unleash it on the world. Is finally like all the pieces of this thing are together, and you get to see it for the first time as like a whole big thing. And for me, it's always like, wow, this is so enormous and so big, and it's bigger than any one person, and it's just I always love that part. And then because you've been staring at it for a year or whatever, and then you see it and you like, I hope it's cool, and then you put it out and people start freaking out, and it's pretty exciting. I have one last question before we open it up to viewers. Are there viewer questions?
Yeah, we have a few lined up.
So if you guys could sculpt anything, like there's no no rules. It doesn't have to be sellable. I guess the one rule is it can't be like 3 feet high in real life or something. Like it's like a realistic thing. Like, what would you sculpt if you could sculpt anything?
That's a really tough question.
Right?
That's a really hard one. Yeah.
All right. How about
The first thing that popped into my mind, though, is a piece that Nate, I really hope someday you'll revisit the idea of the mega deer.
You love mega deer, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it deserves to be made.
Mace was making deer horns at me from across the thing before you even started talking. She's like, I know what...
It deserves to be made.
Mega deer.
I want to see the mega deer.
I might just do it.
Yeah. Oh dear. What Michelle, what would you sculpt if you could sculpt anything?
Oh, like I said, that's really, really hard, because there's so many things that I'd love to see, and I worry too much about not being able to pull it off.
Yeah.
Um, just for, I would love to do um, something like a ruined temple or something along those lines.
I have a
That
griffin
has-
tamer one here. You could take a hammer to, and like, we could have a ruined
Set a
temple in about
firework
4
off.
minutes.
Just
Well,
add vines.
thinking more about cathedral-like.
Yeah.
When we went to England, so many of the chapels and cathedrals and that were in ruins. There was just a kind of sad beauty about it that I'd love to see done.
If you've ever been to Cologne in Germany, there's this striking bombed out church that's just, it's like this blackened single spire that it's like, it's really it's pretty awe-inspiring, and it's powerful. You see this, it's just, there's definitely something. It's like we were saying with Nina, like, how do you make a thing that's unsettling? There's definitely, you can a sadness in a thing. What about you, Eli?
I mean, it's a really hard call. I mean, right at the moment, I'm feeling like it would be really fun to do like sort of a forest dragon, like a sort of elemental dragon that incorporates natural forms into its shape.
So
I
kind of
think
like
that would
the
be a lot of
apex
fun.
primordial.
Yeah,
but like a
but in
dragon.
a more sort of regular symmetrical draconic form. I think that would be wicked cool. I mean, I'd also love to do sort of like a really big kind of ant-like creature, you know.
An ant?
Ant.
Oh, and
Or
not a giant
If you
ant.
want to use the silly D&D version of Ent, you know, their kind of name, which I've always hated, I must say, Trant. But a tree creature. But I mean, I've already done the primordial, so something a little further from that, I think. I don't know. There's definitely some interesting architectural things that would be fun. It depends what day you ask me on what I want to do next. You know, I need to do a really good griffin at some point since I'm griffin tamer, so that should be a thing, really.
You need a mama griffin for that baby griffin you did.
Yeah, that's true. I've been wanting to do like a greater griffin. I worked out stats for one, you know, because a regular griffin in D&D is not a very, you know, it's kind of a math like CR2 monster. I think there should be like a griffin that's like the ancient dragon to that as the wormling, you know, like a real griffin.
A real griffin.
So, yeah. Anyways, yeah.
So Mace, do we have any questions for our
Yes.
intrepid
We do.
sculpting trio?
One of the first ones is, how is sculpting with social distancing different for you guys?
It wasn't, because I'm already distant.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and Nina was like, you know, I'm pretty much the only one that really got affected that much in terms of workflow.
You're
I think you're muted, Nina.
again, Nina.
Sorry, I was clipping wires and it was really loud.
Wait, are you defusing a bomb? What's
Yes,
Okay.
I'm trying to save the city.
Get the blue wire. The blue wire.
So what was I even saying? I don't even know what I was saying.
About working socially distant.
Oh yeah, I'm the only one of us that's in New York, so I'm the only one that had to like pack up all my stuff and go work alone in a sad little apartment. And it really sucked in the beginning, but it actually ended up being better for me because I have this terrible habit is if there's anyone near me and they just happen to make eye contact, I'll just start talking at them. Mace knows. So it kind of helps me stay on task better and really focus in. So the bad thing is that it's really sad and I miss everybody and that really sucks.
Yeah.
But the good thing is more focused. I can work like straight through the night and not have to worry about safety getting home. That's also nice.
I mean, normally I suppose Michelle and I might have come down to the studio for another time or two before the Kickstarter launch, you know, for some final sculpting sprints, and you know that's great to see everybody and get that creative ferment going and all that. But normally we are kind of off in our own state doing our own thing.
That's the thing I miss the most, is sort of everybody in the thing together for some periods of time, where you could sort of see what everybody else is working on, and that cross-pollination that happens when you're seeing what else is happening, inspired by, and can give feedback to each other, and like it's really I miss that a lot.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah. I thrive on that. Like, I need those, like, I need fresh eyes on stuff. Like, it's really, you need some perspective.
Well, even in regard to the painting thing, like you just asked about, like before all of this, I used to talk to Aaron about color a lot. All the time. And it's not something we can really do anymore. So
well, she can't just show you.
Nice surprise. I can't just walk over and talk about it. That's a shame.
Well, and that's times 1,000, right? There's all these little things of, like, everybody's sort of working and tinkering on a little thing here, a little thing there, and it's just sort of, not all being in the same place. It's hard. I miss that a lot. What other questions do we have from?
Next one we have up is, how many pieces in the Kickstarter were created prior to planning for the Kickstarter?
I have to look at a spreadsheet.
Prior to planning?
It says planning, but I assume they mean launch.
Well, there's a couple of pieces that we made for the Dread Hollow Forest that never got released that made it into this one. Well, and a couple of pieces that we just started working on before really doing all that much planning, but that's not that many things.
But technically we'd started planning this sort of with, the forest. We were talking about the forest for Steep. It was like, well, what can we actually do? It was sort of a bigger plan, and then it's like, well, what with the time that we have, let's scale down and do this bit. So we kind of focused on one area, but there was a greater plan sketched out, at least, and then it got greatly fleshed out once we decided to go in and do Wildlands. But although once we've post launch, you guys have been tinkering on some pieces for sure, some stuff that was soon to be seen.
Yeah, there's been a few, but less than usual, I would say.
Yeah.
Because we took so much longer to launch from when we first started. We generally start planning the next Kickstarter like right after the end of the previous one. So.
Oh yeah, this is a long gap, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot.
I feel like that plus us being way more organized about everything made it seem less stressful at the end. Like I know I still ended up pulling more than a couple all-nighters sculpting just to get stuff done on time. But yeah, it's definitely less at the tail end than usual.
We have a better infrastructure. We've got we have a better we've had the creative team has always been robust, but the infrastructure team has really built out a lot since then. So we actually have a better creative pipeline, and we needed it, man. Once we were exploding out and siloing out into all the offices, it's been out of the office. It's been a lot.
Yeah, shout out to Casey, Mace, and Tyler for keeping me sane with some of this stuff.
Yeah. What else from the?
What is the process for deciding what to sculpt? Are they assigned a biome, and are they given tasks like sculpt X number of trees?
So what the question was?
What's the process for deciding who sculpts what and what they're sculpting specifically?
Some of it is bandwidth, some of it is specialty, some of it is like we'll look at the list as a group and be like, hey, we need to do these 8 things next. What makes sense? And like in this, we kind of, Michelle was off in the ruins, while Eli was off in the trees, and like people kind of settled into zones, right? And then I feel like, Nina, you've crossed all zones the most.
I only did one ruins piece, but yeah. I did more than one ruins piece. I don't even remember what's going on.
Yeah, I did all 4 as well, although I don't know if any of my ruins stuff is actually going to appear. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, I based my
So we'll
stuff
see.
on your stuff, so it's kind of gonna appear.
Yeah. Well, and that's
So,
the fun.
there
Is
may be
the
things that will come up in the future, folks, that are already
yeah.
somewhere in the pipeline. Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of blurring of stuff and passing of sculpts around, and there's I don't know how we figure out who's going to do what and where.
I mean,
It's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It tends to kind of settle into like a logical groove.
Yeah,
Who has
what we're
time and
excited about, who has time, what makes sense for keeping things similar in style and relating to each other well. I mean, of course, there's many pieces that get worked on by multiple people, so that helps with blending the look together.
Well, like Wyverstone, right? Like you guys, both Eli and Nina and Toby, you all did a bunch of Wyverstone textures.
You know, we came up with that like the last time that Eli got to come to New York. We sorted out what that was going to be and started on it.
Yeah.
Back before the bad times.
The bad times.
For the Empire. Yeah. Yeah.
What else? What other queries?
Michelle, who is that supervising you over your shoulder?
What's the name of your dragon?
This one?
Yeah.
This one over here? That's George. He showed up in the intro video. We got him last year at around Halloween, and he had to come with us when we moved to Pennsylvania, so.
He's from Home Depot, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's Home Depot.
The great kingdom of Home Depot.
That treacherous land.
It's really
Well,
Fortress Depot.
treacherous.
but-
Is that where TMI's been hanging out?
It's kind of messed up to name a dragon after one of the most legendary dragon slayers.
Well, that's the thing. He slayed. It's Sir Dragon and the George.
Okay.
He took the name. He ate George and took his name. Sir Dragon.
It was the name that just fit him. So.
Gotta go with it. What else do people want to know about?
Next we have which sculpt for each of you was the most difficult and which one just came out naturally?
Is there any sculpts that just sort of float out really naturally? Or any that you were just like hitting your head against the wall with? That you can talk about?
For me, the natural ones are the ones where when I look at a painted one, I was like, oh wow, I don't even remember working on this. But I know
Wait.
that I did.
That happens a lot, Nina. I feel
That
like
happens a lot. It happens a lot. And those are all the ones that like just flow right out because I don't know I've beans, sorry. And the ones that were the most difficult or took the longest are things I can't talk about. So
Wait, are you still sculpting while you're on this stream?
yeah, I am.
Okay.
It's why she keeps muting. She doesn't want us to hear the clicking.
That's so Dwarven Forge. Yeah. Wait,
Multitasking.
Eli, any sort of rhyme or reason to the flow or the head hitting against walls?
I mean, I feel like for the most part, like there's sort of the ones that are like technically difficult. Like the glamour leaf was probably one of those because I had to get a lot of sort of kind of narrow projecting forms, thin shapes, things that were symmetrical. Symmetry is always challenging, and it had to fit around a very particular size and shape that's going to hold the battery and the LED and all that. So, from a technical perspective, also definitely some of the kind of ruinsy stuff like Michelle's been doing, that's very technical. If you're doing patterns, they have to be very exact. One thing that I found a little just kind of time consuming and challenging was working around all the teardrop inserts actually, because the pieces that go in those have to go in and out 900 times to make sure they fit so they look good. And every time you fit something in there, something gets a little smushed, and then you have, so that's again maybe sort of technically a challenge. I mean, in terms of just like time, the forest floors, those big forest floors, the three of those, there's a ton of hours in that. Just there's a lot of little plants and creatures and things, and every square inch takes a couple hours or whatever. So
Times
you multiply
36
that
square
by,
inches.
yeah. There's a lot of time in those guys, and even around the edges, you're putting in a burrow with a rodent here or whatever the case may be, and it's not just quick texturing.
How about
and
like that?
yeah.
The crescent, the banana boat, the crescent rock piece.
Oh, that one was really.
That was a hunk of geometry.
A lot of
that was like
tinkering with the shape on that. Yeah, because trying to get it so that the hidden grid flowed naturally, and so that the angles on it worked, so that it and to get it to look like an actual rock and not just something that it got chopped, because
I don't know how
that's always the danger when we initially get. Yeah, definitely. That's a different kind of technical challenge, but it is very much one. Yeah, that one, and actually the one I did on the anvil there, that piece, which had a bunch of geometric requirements that needed to fit, a bridge here and a piece needed to fit onto, and so on and so forth, various heights. So yeah, those are the kind of the composition phase of those where you're bouncing back and forth between. Back. Yeah. It has to do certain things, fill certain roles, be a certain shape in a certain place, and yet it has to look natural and look good. So you don't look at it and be like, oh, they just chopped off that corner so something fits there. It wants to look like that's just how the rock is. That's how it formed. And what do you know? It actually fits up against this other thing as well. So that's definitely an interesting puzzle. Yeah.
But the puzzle worked. I'll tell you, when you start putting all the things together, and it doesn't look awkward. You guys. Yeah,
it looks like a real weird rock you might see out when you're on a hike somewhere and be like, oh, look at that cool rock. I mean, at least I like to think it does look like a natural shape, despite the fact that it fulfills all these arcane functions that you specified for.
Really. Anything for you, Michelle? Is there a difference when it flows versus when it's you're hitting a wall?
Yeah, definitely, and it almost always involves geometry.
Yeah.
It's trying to get the shape to function as it's supposed to be. The pieces that go really fast for me are generally much smaller.
Yeah, you can bang out those cool little decorative things if it's like less than 1 inch by 1 inch and doesn't have like a super mandated the geometry has to do this. Like you can do those fast.
Doing doors and things have all, even the double doors, those just flowed so much easier for me from Hellscape and Caverns Deep. Doors, just when I've got something flat and I don't have to think too hard, those go really fast. When I have to think, and all the little molds of decorative elements that I did for the ruins were relatively easy to get done. I could get these done. It was then building everything out that proved to be challenging to me.
But it worked.
Yeah, eventually it worked.
What else?
One of the questions is, how many sculpts do you guys think had to be cut because of the factory's inability to make them all?
I don't know. We've got 5.
Way too many.
I don't know. There's at least 30 pieces in the freezer or something. Maybe more. I don't know. It's I don't even have a full accounting. I don't know. I'm trying to look around to see where. Yeah, but we definitely have, particularly a lot of the ruins stuff is sitting at home. Poor Ruins always gets like every year. Ruins just sort of somehow takes the back, just gets pushed to the back of the line.
So we should do a Ruin Kickstarter where everything
in
that
Ruins.
we revisit everything and just do
Ruin
Ruins.
Think of what that'll do to society.
And
That
yeah,
would really pass the sculpt though. It's just everything we've already made a ruin.
break it. Well, and we have. I mean, the good news is a lot of things come back, right? So even I don't know, there was like a throne Michelle you sculpted for Castles made it into Dungeon of Doom as Zaltar's throne, and there's I don't know
The mini dungeon.
the mini dungeon, the ruins, the dungeon ruins from Dungeon of Doom that ended up in Caverns Deep, and so we have it's nice to have the stuff that doesn't make it into this one is sort of queued up for the next one or the one after or whatever. It's nice to be ahead of have some stuff already sort of in the archive there. And sometimes it takes a couple of years, and some things are still sitting there waiting for their chance.
Yeah.
Static Overdrive says, "What a great team! I don't just mean skill, but I also mean the mutual respect for each other and the art form."
Oh,
Thank you.
definitely.
Not a question,
Thank you,
but you
yeah.
guys deserve compliments too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I
Yeah, thank you.
absolutely love this team. It's the best.
I feel lucky to work with these two. I've learned so much from both of them. And when I'm stuck, I can just shoot a question. It's very helpful. You guys are great.
Yeah,
These are
same
too.
here. It's we're very fortunate.
And it certainly expands way beyond the people here. Like even like even some of the auxiliary people, like Drew Williams was talking to him the other day, and he was talking about how much he's like, oh man, it's really good to be able to talk to Nina and get some her take on these things. Or,
Oh yeah, we talked on Facebook.
Yeah, no, he was like, he
recently.
Yeah, there's it's pretty amazing to have such a cool collection of artists that are so multi-talented and then can just cross collaborate like crazy across the boards. We are lucky.
Definitely.
What else? Does anybody else have any other
Total BFs ask, "What's the oldest piece you've had to hold back that you've most wanting to bring to the future Kickstarters?"
what was it?
I think it's a
That's
piece that's
still
already been
out?
sculpted that they've had to hold off on. How long is it? Like, what's the oldest a piece is before it's
The
been
record
released?
probably goes to Eli's drawbridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Wow.
That the Necro drawbridge was originally done for Castles that then got to appear on the Hellgate.
So it went Dungeon of Doom, Caverns Deep, and then Hellscape.
Yeah.
The Yorgrim have been sitting, a bunch of them have been sitting, waiting since Dungeon of Doom.
Yeah. I mean, the Cree Queen.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to see her out someday.
The problem is we have to make bigger burrows.
Yeah.
She doesn't fit on any of the burrows. Yeah.
She needs like the giant, like queen, the royal chamber. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just need a cross promotion with Tremors. We'll be fine.
Tremors cross promotion. Need the double wide burrows. Yeah, there's it could be a couple of years sometimes. Or then there's always the ones that get lost or whatever, like back from the olden days, right? Like
What's lost?
Stefan misplaced all those things from Drew.
Didn't we find those?
I don't think
Still
so.
a bunch of dwarves somewhere, I think.
The dwarven. There's like a whole. I don't know.
I had given him a bunch of green stuff minis that I thought were the ones that we had been looking for.
I think he lost the whole dwarven court. There was like a king with a throne.
No, these weren't dwarves.
Yeah,
they
no,
were
they're
additional villagers.
the lost clan of dwarves.
Do you guys anticipate the teardrop inserts fitting more snugly into Dwarvenite versus the resin, or I think they actually mean the clay that you're using?
I think you mean the resin casting.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, where the teardrop inserts will get. It's very similar to the Burroughs inserts, which our prototypes weren't quite a perfect fit, and then working with our partners at the factory, like they're really good at getting a nice tight factory fit on that stuff. So yes, we will definitely work that stuff out.
What are some of the plants and other like items that you guys drew inspiration from for sculpting?
Well, I live in northern Vermont, and just going out in my woods, there's all kinds of things out there, some of which I put in forest floors. My wife's also a trained botanist, so so there's, for example, there's trilliums and bunchberries and smilax vines and all sorts of things. There's a bunch of new ones in the new in the swamp and the new forest as well. Like some of the little forest floors, I put some wild ginger in, which is a plant I've always loved that grows around here. So yeah, I'm kind of an amateur naturalist by inclination. So all of it out there, the whole wild world, is inspiration for me, certainly.
And Nina, you've got concept or photos.
Oh, geez.
Like all sorts of real photos everywhere when you're sculpting.
Yeah, I like to print them out and have them up. It's going to be like a combination of things. But I think the real difference for me this year was incorporating animal forms into plants more. Yeah. And of course, plant-like animals. Animal-like plants, like the corpse flower. And also a lot of like just weird sea creatures and a lot of different funguses I reference.
Yeah, you find all the weird stuff in nature and get a picture of it. Really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's probably good for everybody that I'm not there with my creepy pin board over my desk.
Do you, Michelle, when you're looking for inspiration, what are your go-tos?
Oh, lots of fantasy art.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of fantasy art.
Anywhere in particular you drum that up, or is it just Google?
For the most part, it's Google. I have a few pieces at home. And now that I'm in this new house, there's a few more things that are inspirational. And then sometimes it's just taking the descriptions of things that you, Nate, are telling me to make and just trying to come up with something that kind of fits it.
I like to throw a lot of adjectives at you guys.
The best one is dangerous. Make it look more dangerous.
Sharper. Everything has to be so sharp that your fingers bleed while you're sculpting it.
Sharp and dangerous. Sharp and dangerous. Yeah. I am a creature of habit, huh? Well, we're not making kids' toys. We're making adult toys.
Better safer.
So to speak. Danger.
Yeah,
I think your
can't buy
kids,
anything.
Nate, would. I think your kids, Nate, would argue that.
Yeah.
Seem to like it.
Oh no, Grayson says, yeah, he's like, I think kids like this stuff better than grown-ups anyway. He's pretty sure.
In general, kids tend to like things more than adults do because we're too jaded.
Yeah, they have that sense of wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although sometimes they'll look at this the DF stuff and be like, oh, that's pretty cool, but whatever. Not. I'm like, but look at all the detail. Look at the thing, this paint job, the thing. They're like, I don't know. Like they saw the Crimson Claw Wyvern. I'm like, look at this cool like fine thing. They're like, that's cool, but I didn't like much. I'm like, but they were just like
Tough crowd.
no. Where's your wonder? Cool. Any other questions? We should wrap up soon.
We can wrap up soon. One question is, could we get a list of all the plants that show baked up in the forest tiles?
A list of all the plants?
All the unique plants, fantastical or otherwise.
Wow.
I was counting because I did a separate paint scheme for each plant, each different species on my forest tiles. I think I had about 35 unique plants that repeated in various places, as well as lots of ones that there was just one-offs here and there. So,
and that was just in Dread Hollow without Swamp?
That was just in Dread Hollow, yeah, without the swamp and without the new Dread Hollow stuff, which has more species as well.
So that puts us over 50. But...
there's easily over 50 now, and that's not even really counting things that there's just one of. Because there's lots of species that are kind of rare in a forest, so you'll just see one if you wander across many acres. And I don't think that's really counting the fungi either, because mushrooms, there's lots of different kinds of mushrooms, but also there's lots of mushrooms that do look the same at that scale. They're a little round things, so you can paint all your mushrooms to be, an amanita, or you can paint every single one to be a different species. That's not really counting much. That's pretty much just plants. Yeah, there's a lot.
What are they going to do with
kind
this?
of time to actually list them all out.
And what are they going to do with this list? What are they?
Yeah. Well, some of them are completely made up species too. They're based on real things, but they're far enough afield, because the challenge here's another interesting challenge, sculpting a forest floor. A lot of plants that actually grow in a forest just don't lend themselves well to being reproduced at that scale. They stick up and they have shapes that you just could not possibly cast realistically. So some things you can translate into a small flat shape pretty easily, like a trillium or a bunchberry. Some you can't, but you might use them as inspiration for something that goes from being vertical to more flattened out. But it gets to the point where it's definitely not the same species. It would be silly to call it that. So there are a lot of things that are just, I have one name or another for them, but they're not real plants. And then, of course, there are things we're deliberately going weird with, that we made up, our Valorian creepers and so on. Some of the especially strange and kind of carnivorous-looking stuff that was based more on fantasy to begin with.
Deliberately going weird is... that's where we need to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's our motto.
The title of our next Kickstarter.
Title of my memoir.
Yeah. Deliberately going weird.
Title for my obituary.
Deliberately going weird until she burned down a church. Cool. Well, I think let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up here. Right, so we'll be back tomorrow night with Die Hard Dice, and then Thursday with the War Game Extravaganza live, and that's like a 2-hour special, right? 90 minutes. Like, it's gonna be a lot of 3 rounds of bloody combat, and then a crazy collaborative finale.
What games are they playing? Is it Warhammer?
It's a homebrew speed battle homebrew. Right?
So it's mostly going to be based off of Frostgrave. And then I think we might be mixing some Rangers of Shadowdeep in there for the finale.
But it's like supercharged. It's like 20-minute games.
We're taking the basis, and then we're saying, like, how do we crunch this into like a really fast pace, something that feels like watching like professional wrestling. We're trying to like do that so we can have a bunch of little quick things to show off all the cool stuff you can do with this stuff as wargaming terrain.
Do I need to wear my spandex?
Yeah.
I thought that was implied.
Oh, dang.
I have a.
I got one hanging.
I have one over there. Yeah, you could totally wear that.
Replace a mask with that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be crazy if somebody flipped the table?
Wouldn't it be insane if I brought in a chair and knocked it on the back of Toby and Hamster's head?
Totally.
That would be so nuts.
I already feel like I'm in a cage despite all this rage. All right.
So close. See. All right. And then I don't know what else we have going. We have a Kickstarter still going. Turns out 15 more days or something. Oh, and I got to get this update out. All right. So let's say goodnight to everybody. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. Thanks. Nice to see you guys, even though you couldn't see us. It's nice to see the three of you guys, and it's nice to just hang out and chat for a little bit. So we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Thank you for all the support. We've cracked 2.4 million. Free Wyvern for everybody in Wyverstone Peak, and off we go. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.